because the premise for this live is going to be about how a lot of people are playing it safe on LinkedIn, and Substack is kind of like the safe haven for that. So that note kind of will take us where we need to go.
Yeah, yeah. I see that note kind of being the premise for this entire live, maybe. But we'll branch off from it. But basically, it's LinkedIn is people pretending to be nice to protect their brand. Substack is people being real because their employers, investors, and HR department aren't watching. Big difference, right? I know that you have a personal story with that too, with your
Yeah, I
CEO
mean,
situation, right?
there was a minute there where like he started asking me like I need you to post more content about the business and about being a marketing director and about software, and it would be kind of confusing to my audience because I was never really talking about the transportation market. So I think that people would be confused if I all of a sudden started talking. And not only that, but I didn't really know those markets that well. So I pushed back pretty heavily against him, and then it ended up having to like talk to HR at one point, and then ended up getting pushed out of the company at one point because I kind of fought back. But it was really uncomfortable because I was like, I told him, I'm like, you don't own my LinkedIn, you don't own my personal brand, and you can't tell me what you can and cannot, what I can and cannot put on there. But it was just really uncomfortable because it just seems that if you're in a position where you need the money, and I needed the money, it was like a six-figure salary, and I needed to be there, and I was collecting, check or whatever. So like it sucked being in that position because I know that a lot of other people go through the same exact thing where they can't post things, or they're worried about ruffling feathers, or they're worried about like, am I going to piss someone off if I use like a bad word or a cuss word or whatever, just flattening themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, it strikes me as very odd. I've been out of the corporate world for a very long time. So it strikes me as very odd that somebody, like, even though you kind of were more, you were like higher up in like the marketing
Right.
side of things than this, right? But it still strikes me as really odd that like your CEO actually felt like he had that much say of what you do with your personal brand. But I think you were telling me the other day that like you were even going out of your way to only comment on people's stuff in the evening,
Oh yeah, I
like
wouldn't even
on.
write. I wouldn't even. I don't know if like you remember when we probably first met. I don't know. Maybe I think it was. I don't know. I want to say it was before we met or around the time we met. Like that, there was a time period there when I joined Growth Ghost where I could only like write content at like 5 o'clock at night. I couldn't like go comment during the day, and they were actually using that against me because I work remotely. They were going, "Oh, this guy's not even like working. He's like off doing his own thing, and he doesn't care about the company. He only cares about himself, and he's like confusing people that are clients because does he own his own company and does podcasting for a living, or what does this guy do?" So it ended up putting me in a very bad situation where I felt just this constant like stress, like I was walking on eggshells. And the interesting thing is he was younger than me, but he was also very inexperienced. Like he only had one real job. Like he somehow climbed from like a very low position to the CEO of a software company. And we were small. We were only like 15 people, but he'd worked there for like 10, 12 years or whatever. So this
Right.
guy was very like he didn't have very much real world experience. And all he saw was that other marketing directors and marketing executives at other software companies were constantly talking about the brand of the company. And I just looked at that like as a strategic flaw because like kind of like the way you can't take your audience from LinkedIn, like you have 20,000 people that you could lose. I have 9,000 people that I could lose. On Substack, I only have 63 subscribers or emails, but to me, that's kind of like a moat against like that other thing where they could just say, fuck you, I'm done with you, Jeremy, fuck, I'm going to ban you or whatever. I'm not saying that LinkedIn is going to do that, but there's definitely been cases where like people like Laura Costa, other creators have been banned for various reasons, and they're a little bit opaque about like, is there even a line that you call? I don't even know what you're supposed to do when that happens. Like, are you just supposed to just cry for other creators that you need help or whatever? But at the end of the day, like, I don't trust them to like do the right thing.
Yeah. Also, those people who got like their accounts banned, and then got it back again. Those are probably the rare cases that we're actually hearing about, only because those people are the Lara Costas, the
69 subs.
the Luke Matthews, and and these types of people where they did get banned, and the only reason why they got their accounts back is because they have such a big brand that they were able to, go in their like network of like other top creators who they actually know off platform and say, guys, I need you to like write a post about this and share it and actually talk about this. And that's how they got their account back, is because it's actually just a bad look for LinkedIn, like that they are so like opaque, as you sort of said, where it's like they won't even explain to you why you got banned in the first place, right? And they see no problem with that. So it's a really bad look for them, especially when those big creators started sharing that, right? So those are the ones we hear about who got back their account, but there's so many people who probably got banned at like 20,000 followers and that kind of thing. And that's why even recently for me, right, hitting about 130 subscribers or whatever, um, it feels it feels about as good as probably growing like 1,000 LinkedIn followers, in terms of like impact potential
Right.
in that.
No,
Yeah.
100%. I think that the subs are obviously like way more subs over followers all day. Someone actually got mad at me on Substack recently because I wrote something to the effect of I'd rather have one client than 1,000 followers, and he was basically like, "Fuck you! Like, am I not important?" Like his message back to me, and and I was like, "No, this was very meant to be like that you should. This is more important for your business. I'm not discrediting the people that follow me and not appreciative of but I'd rather survive and have like a business than have claps or internet clout status or whatever. But it was interesting because I didn't even know I had to like look through like it was like through like you could see somewhere on Substack where people have messaged. He like restacked one of my things and basically was talking shit back to me. I answered him like in a very like calm way because I don't like getting into the things with people anymore these days as I've gotten older. I don't like try fighting people. I just try going, okay, I see your point, but that's taking out of context. And it was literally like 4 or 5 words. So like brevity was my friend in that thing. And obviously when you say things, that's one of the other thing too, is like when I realize when you say things as a writer, there's certain things that people are not going to get, they're not going to understand. And that's okay. Like not every, I don't have to defend myself on every post.
There's so much I could say about that. So this was one of your Substack followers, right? Who was he was personally angry because you said I'd rather have one client as opposed to just 1,000 followers, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Hey, what are you trying to say? Like I mean nothing to you?
Yeah,
What the hell,
exactly.
bro?" Like, so here's
Yeah.
here's one thing about Substack.
Guilt tripping
Um,
me.
I have noticed people like there are some people who get pretty like heated or even like emotional in the comments and that kind of thing, right? But that just kind of that just lends to what we're talking about here, is that like you probably wouldn't even see somebody react like that on LinkedIn because they'd still hold that like professional, like that varnish or like that professional sort of uh
Polish.
yeah, polish or way of presenting themselves, right? Um, and that's what I've noticed that with Substack too, a lot like Twitter, um, where people are a little bit more real, and they even will like cry about something like that, which is just kind of stupid, but yeah.
The other thing that came up to my mind too is that I feel like I kind of have to be somewhat censored on LinkedIn, right? I guarantee you, if you look at the content that Tim Denning posts on LinkedIn versus Substack, I'm sure it's a little bit different. I'm sure he's way more unhinged on Substack than he is on LinkedIn. And I'm just thinking that people have to kind of play LinkedIn's game to some sort of degree. And thoughts on like how do you pierce the noise though on LinkedIn? Because we don't really have like any. I don't really care if like obviously I don't want to get banned, and I'm okay like ruffling feathers because I don't really have a boss per se. Like I have many bosses now as an entrepreneur, so I'm just wondering like how do you think about cutting through the noise on LinkedIn because people are like scared to cuss on there. They're scared to make a point. They're scared of everything to the point where it almost feels like so much polish that it's just boring to read. Not you, obviously, not other writers, but people that are like these business folks, like on LinkedIn. Do you,
Yeah. So there's a lot,
do
a
you,
lot of things I could say about that. Like my approach to LinkedIn from the get go was very different from most people, and I think that that's how It's how I was able to kind of grow so fast. Um, I think I just had a little bit more edge because I was also coming directly from Twitter, right? So when you think about Twitter edginess, um, if you're coming directly from Twitter, you're going to have way more of that raw, unfiltered vibe, or at least I know I did, right? So when I came to LinkedIn, you know, and maybe I'm just writing some like, I don't know, 150 word like text only post or something. I I I would say something back then that wasn't even like to me, wasn't even controversial at all. In fact, it was me being pretty tame, you know, still knowing I was on LinkedIn, right? But just kind of saying things a little bit more how they actually are, a little more direct like that, gave me that edge where I think it maybe it turned a lot of heads and maybe a lot of people be like, you know, like who is this guy? He's not doing exactly what everyone else is. So I think that's part of the strategy. Um, I will say now something I've been doing. I actually just wrote about this in a newsletter that went out today on Substack. Um, I talked about how I've actually I've been seeing good results from writing stuff for Substack first and then repurposing it back to LinkedIn. Like some of my better Substack stuff, repurposing it back to LinkedIn because it's just got it's just got a little bit more of that edge, and I'm kind of writing from a different place. That is where when you're writing for LinkedIn, you're going to have that filter, that invisible box of what you can and can't say. But I've been finding that the way I write for Substack is just even more like a little bit more unfiltered than I would even normally do for LinkedIn. And I'm a person where I'm not even like that afraid of like ruffling feathers on LinkedIn. But
Yeah.
even still, I'm just posting about different stuff that I might not think to post about on LinkedIn, but I'm writing that way on Substack and then cross posting it to LinkedIn, and it's performing well. But beyond it just performing well, it's also getting like it's it has more impact. Like I had a woman who's been following me for a while on LinkedIn DM me and tell me that that I really like inspired her to sort of stand for something on LinkedIn, right? Stuff like that. People reaching out to me and stuff and saying they really liked a certain post, that kind of thing. And sometimes it's not even just being about like edgy where like you're just using profanity and stuff. Sometimes it's just about being like more real, you know? Um, Speaking more from like your gut and soul and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah, no, 100%. It's interesting too because like I wrote a post the other day on LinkedIn and to support our live today, and it was something to the hook was something to the effect of like LinkedIn doesn't have a content problem, it has a courage problem, and it pissed some people off. You could tell like in the comments, and at the very end of it, like the takeaway was like learn to like let a little loose, and someone's like, how do you let loose? And I think that part of the part of the way you let loose is like by like removing yourself from some of like the boss employee relationship for one. Like that's one way that I let myself loose is by not having one boss that could fire me by starting a
only
business.
only someone on LinkedIn would ask that question. How do you let loose? How does one wait, hang on. How does one let loose? Can you provide some examples, please?
Yeah, Mark Manson talks about these things. I think he calls them like waterfall questions, where you ask these like very high level questions where you can't do anything about them because they're so dumb and they're so like, how do you ask a girl out? Like you get stuck in this like thing where it's such like a big question that they don't have any momentum because they ask such big questions. And I think a lot of
Mm,
people on LinkedIn think that way because you have to think like a lot of people are on LinkedIn, they're not entrepreneurs yet or a lot of them are entrepreneurs or they're wanting to be entrepreneurs and their employees trying to get onto that trap. Like I had lunch with a friend yesterday and he's been employed for 7 months and every year or so or a year and a half he'll get like a job making 150,000 dollars a year, but every so often he gets laid off and then he's out of work for 6 7 months. So we were talking about it yesterday too, like either you're in that game or you're in the game where you just build something you're on your own. And my favorite part about building something on my own is just not having to answer to some dickhead that's above me and like make my life and my nervous system deregulated because like I'm picking up on their energy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've been disconnected from that for too long.
You're so lucky,
I
honestly.
kind of don't remember. I almost don't remember how bad it is.
Awful.
But
Fucking awful.
just I don't know. I remember something from back when I did have a job where it's just like just even having to ask for like your 2 week vacation, and like negotiate that. Um, even that used to kind of bug me a little bit back in the day, right?
No, yeah.
Then
You're like I'm not.
now with it's gone to a whole other level, and this directly relates back to LinkedIn. Is that you know they feel like they can they have every right to breathe down your neck and watch what you're posting online and dig deep into your social media history. Like I hate the term digital footprint. People talk about that on LinkedIn. I've seen people post about that on LinkedIn, like seriously being like, you guys have to watch your digital footprint, like marketers talking like that and stuff. It's really annoying. Um, yeah.
I don't know if you've ever used like AI to Google your name, but it's interesting because I think that we've written so much content now that our names are pretty well established and it'll tell you exactly what you do. It's almost like your own resume. So I almost feel like it worked in the opposite way that it made it made it easy for me to present myself because I wasn't going to go there and write that and redo it to make it look a certain way. So I think that the more content that we make, the more like AI will recognize exactly what we do and who we help.
Yeah, yeah. If I put in Mike Bolton LinkedIn Ghostwriter, it 100% does know who I am, uh, or just Mike Bolton Ghostwriter. Obviously, my name is a little bit too common. If I just put Mike Bolton, it'll pull up the 80s, 90s singer, probably Office Space, probably a few other
It's
things before.
legends, though. Yeah, I mean, the
Yeah,
singer in itself is a legend. So I totally get it. If you add that word, though, it makes sense. It'll come. And people are going to do that. They're going to look you up sometimes, right? They're going to go in there and check you out and see what you're all about. By the way, I had a sales call yesterday from a DM, and I kind of slacked on DMs for like the last couple weeks. I need to get back into it, but this was like from one from like a couple weeks back, and I on the call. I get on the call with this guy yesterday. He lives in Manhattan Beach, so I know that he has money because Manhattan Beach is like a really expensive area. So pro tip when you're prospecting, prospect places like New York City, Austin, Texas, places that you know
sure.
that people have money because they're cosmopolitan areas. So I knew that Manhattan Beach is kind of a wealthy area. And get on the call with them yesterday. Normally I do like a free video or whatever. I'm like, yeah, let's talk about this free video. What do you want to do? She's like, just tell me the pricing like right away. And I was like, oh shit, like this is wild. He like went straight into it. Ended up quoting him like $1,500 for like I didn't switch to the new model yet, but $1,500 for 8 videos, 2 month minimum. And he's like, yeah, that sounds good, man. Like just I have to send him over a proposal, but he's like, sounds like he's like 90% of the way there. And it was literally from like a
Sweet,
DM.
dude.
And I started thinking back of even like Kevin Kelly's thing uh last night, and like you only need like 100 people to pay you $1,000 each to make 6 figures, right? So like it's crazy. Like I think the more you prospect, the more or the more I prospect and the more I get into things, the more I think about like I just need to go out there and like not get into my head about like, oh, I'm a creator, I don't need to reach out because I have a certain amount of followers. So much quicker just to go in there and be like, fuck it. Like I'm gonna spend an hour and just go reach out to these fuckers and then see if I can set some meetings.
Yeah. Are you going more are you going more direct these days or what's your approach these days? Or that particular DM, I want to hear about the one that well, that's close to closing now. Um what what did that conversation look like?
So it was quick, man. I mean, it was like probably like a half hour. So this guy was very well established. Like he had 6,000 followers. He'd been in the CPG market. So CPG is like things that you see at the store, like consumer goods.
Yeah.
He's writing a book. He was like, dude, I have all these projects. Like I had some sort of music project, and he had like 3 or 4 different projects going on, but he had 0 videos, right? And that's kind of part of the reason why it's easy for me to go onto someone's LinkedIn page and see that there's a gap between, hey, this guy has like 6,000 followers, but no videos, and he's clearly a leader. What's going on? So I pitched him on the free video. He didn't, he said yes to it, but then on the call, he's like, I don't want the free video. Let's just talk business. And I was kind of thrown off because I was like, okay, cool. And then I kind of like
Well,
told him like, yeah, like most of these videos end up being 30 seconds, 45 seconds. They're under a minute. And he's like, well, I have like maybe one or two that need to be like 2 minutes. Would that be okay? I was like, yeah, that's not a problem. I'll just caption them. We'll get on a Riverside call. I'll mine your data. You know what's really interesting too is I was listening to a book from The Moth. It's like this story kind of society that started like in New York City. Matthew Dix did a Moth story slam, and they kind of present to you like how to tell stories, how to mine stories, and how a lot of people think that they don't have stories to tell for whatever reason, and how to adjust the stakes to these stories. It's a great book. I was listening to it yesterday, and part of my thing is like that's what I'm doing. I'm going in there and figuring out kind of like these stories and then pulling them out, and then the 8 videos end up being like under a minute each. And then on my end, the nice part about the way I develop that specific thing is there's not a whole lot of you can see that a lot of editors will end up in hell from not like where to cut and whatnot. But since we agreed on the script live on the call, and I'm coaching him live on the call, pretty much the cut is the cut. And then from there, like, if I could edit it, add captions to it. He might wanted some like B-roll and some other things. So he normally I don't do that because I'm like not at capacity anytime soon. I'll take on whatever I can just to like get shit going or whatever. But you could see that there's definitely like even like you could layer on another level to that. Like at some point where if I found like a really good editor that was dope at like motion graphics and like making videos really pop, it could be like an even like higher tier of editing. I think a lot of it is just assembling. Like I found a videographer too. I think I mentioned on a previous call. Like so, if I found someone in LA that needed serious shots, you could do that too. So I think the value ladder is there for like different things to move depending on what the project is.
yeah, I like your business model, and I like your offer in this. And it seems to me like it could actually be very scalable. And I've been saying things like maybe you should add the whole distribution side of things where you also post the videos for them and all that. But maybe you actually shouldn't, you know? Maybe you should stay away from that and just focus on on the interview process and creating killer videos for them and then just delivering those assets over to them. Because yeah, that's what they are, man. They're just assets that that person has now, like forever, and they can repurpose them on whatever platform they want. And it's just like let them handle that themselves, right? Um, because I don't know from what I've gathered from you, it doesn't sound like there's like such a massive demand for people being like, but Jeremy, who's going to post the videos? Like, if you're not
Yeah,
hearing that like repeatedly, then it probably means that just the videos alone are so, and what you're doing with the interview process, which is really where, like, that's where the real value like comes in, right? If it was
sure.
just, if you were just a video editor, then it wouldn't even be half as valuable what you actually do. But because you come to the interview with those questions and you're thinking kind of like a copywriter and kind of like, you know, creative director and this, um, that's where it just becomes so much more valuable, right? Yeah. So if they're not asking you for for the whole distribution side of things, maybe avoid it, because if all you have to do is hop on calls, have really great questions, guide the conversation, and then just pass it off to the editor. Are you still doing the video editing yourself, or
I'm trimming it. Yeah, I'm not doing anything complicated though. I'm just doing trimming with captions using like Opus Clip or Premiere Pro. So I'm not doing anything crazy. There's definitely levels of editing. I'm just trimming and adding captions, which is fine for like 90% of people. But sometimes you'll end up with people that want something a little bit more higher end, like something that has more production value. I haven't really done many like that yet. I probably need to find a better editor that's above my skill set to do something that's a little bit more pro like that. And that would be more expensive, obviously, right? Because that's someone that's like got someone that really needs a polished video that's like pops off or whatever with like lots of motion graphics and things like that. Those videos could take probably a couple hours to edit on one video if it's like like something like that on a good editor. So I think that it just depends on the situation. The one thing that was interesting about this guy yesterday though, he's like the one thing I like about you, I don't know if this comes up with ghostwriting too, but he's like, I like the fact that you don't know me and I could just say whatever the fuck I want to. You're like a like a neutral party. I don't know why that was like he felt that was a benefit for some reason to him. Like he's like,
Hmm.
if you knew me, it would be harder for me to work for you. And I was like, oh, okay. And then a lot of times too, I think I told you this. I don't know if you guys do the same thing, but I do the creative brief with them. Like so I spend an hour like on the first call if this guy closes, and I'll kind of do like a truncated version of Dakota's creative brief. And then I'll give it back to him and say, you could use this for your content or give it to your ghostwriter. If you want to continue that, so that way that the videos that we're matching are all prompted from this specific set of data, and that way all of your content will align within the strategy too. So that ends up being kind of like a bonus. That I'm like, yeah, so you could also do this or whatever. Yeah, man, I think I think the one thing that I'm realizing is it's just the I think a lot of creators are probably like that too. It's just doing DMs is a little bit exhausting. That's the part I need to get into the point of like not thinking about it too much and thinking about the misery because I think that that part is what makes it hard for me personally.
Yeah, man. I find LinkedIn DMs just as exhausting as anybody. Um, I feel like I feel like if you have a really great offer, like I feel like there's something really compelling about your offer. So for me, it just for as an outsider, it feels like the product just wouldn't be that hard to move, but maybe I'm sure it's the same thing. But it sounds like that's awesome. You're having some success with the DMs and stuff, and I think I'm closer to moving more towards being just really direct as opposed to the sort of like conversational approach in this because I think it leads to the same place kind of regardless. I don't know if it makes that much difference, especially with these like busy CEO founders, because I've kind of noticed that like some of them they really do actually have more of an attitude where it's kind of like, are we just going to chit chat here, or are you going to get to the fucking point? You
Yeah,
know, I
yeah,
really think a lot of them that's what they're thinking, and it's like you only have about like three back and forth questions before they just completely tune out because they really don't have time to chit chat. You know,
yeah,
it's almost insult. It's I think it's almost insulting to them as well, right? You think about if you were like a busy multi seven figure CEO or something like this, right? And somebody thinking you have all the time in the world to go back and forth. Um, it almost I think shows maybe a naiveness. You do have to get to the point pretty quick, I think.
yeah. I learned this lesson like maybe a year or so ago, maybe 2 years ago, from that guy Mo Choice. He basically like I don't really know him that well, but he kind of I remember I was struggling with DMs, and he was just like, the reason you're struggling is because you hate other people when they pitch you. And I was like, you're right, I do. I don't like it when people just pitch slap me. And like I kind of had a bad attitude about it. But then I was like, you know what? I'm going to be nice to every single person that pitches me, or either I'll ignore it if it's terrible, or I'll send something back nice as a human being. Because that way I was like, all right, at least I'm now in this system where I'm at least kind in the system, and I don't feel as bad when I'm participating in this system. And I've seen other people too within growth that are older, a lot older. I don't want to say their name, and they're already successful or whatever. And their strategy is just only be nice, and the world will take care of you. But that person happens to be already like pretty wealthy, I believe, because I think he's already exited companies, and like he's older and he's had more time to build his business. So his strategy is like be kind and like network as much as possible, and everything will work itself out. And that's fine for his stage. But I think for people that are like newer, that don't have as much growth and don't have as much revenue, that's the fastest way to get business. And to me, I feel like I don't want to waste time chatting with them and like shooting the shit. I'll do that on the call if they want to or whatever, if they want to like, be cool or whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to waste their time. I'm just going to be like, here's what I have. And if you don't like it, fuck, whatever. But I think you also have to do it in such a way, like any offer, where it's something like a reason to hop on the call. And for me, it's a free video, right? So they're going to get a free video out of it. There's no friction there. So like, I always try to think of like how could I get the meeting, right? A lot of people with like timeshares, they'll give you like a 2 hour or $200 gift certificate if you show up for the timeshare just to check it out, because they know that some of these fucking. So to me, it's like the meeting is the most important part. So if I can get this person on the meeting and then show them what I do, like a taste or whatever, and they could leave with the taste. It's a lot better than me trying to explain, oh, I'm going to make you a video and do this, and it's going to be about stories. It's like, no, here's the product. Here's what it is. I get the review. I move on. Either way, I have a review, right? And with a stronger chance of closing. So to me, it makes a lot of sense. It's just finding that like that mechanism or that trigger, whether it's like a free audit or like I don't know something that I had a ghostwriter that was really impressive that I dropped into the links in Growth Ghost. That he must have taken like an hour or two to put together this Notion thing. He had a video that was directed specifically towards me and like a week's worth of content, LinkedIn, Twitter, all in my voice, all written out, and said, "Hey, if this looks good to you, I could take over your LinkedIn next week and do it." And I was like, "Holy shit!" So I'm not saying to do that level of like of of caredness because that's kind of it could be a waste of time. I'd rather just like have something where I can get them there. But to me, I if I was going to hire someone, you kind of hire the people that you see put in effort, right? So I think that there's something there where instead of going hard on 1,000, go less on a few potentially.
Question about that guy who created that whole Notion
Yeah.
document and all that. Um, he did that. Tell me he didn't do that before he messaged you. He did that. Did he ask you for like, did he do the typical, hey, Jeremy, I put something together for you, this resource, like want to take a look or interested? Did he do that first or what?
No, he just like fucking made the thing and sent it over
Uh,
in like a Notion document. And I respected the hustle, but then I also kind of felt bad. I was like, I don't want to like not like I don't have money right now to hire other people. So it's not like one of those things where I respected the effort though, and I'm talking about it, right? So to me, it's like I think that's probably I don't think you should go do a bunch of work before you have like a meeting. Like that's kind of my gut feeling. And that's why I
yeah,
offer like the free video on the call. I don't go do a
yeah,
bunch of work beforehand. But I thought it was an interesting way to stand out. And I've seen other people do it in the past where they'll do these little things instead of like sending out like 100 messages that are just complete bullshit and garbage and like not researched at all. They'll just send out like 5, but they're a lot more like targeted somehow.
yeah.
It's like this weird thing where it's like I think that a lot of people, including myself, I don't want to waste effort and do things if I think I'm spinning my wheels and then like not getting a result out of it. So to me, I think that if I could find ways to get these meetings, that's kind of like the meetings are the conversations and meetings are where business happens. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I like your whole timeshare analogy as well, comparing it to a timeshare. Of
Yeah,
course, there's some timeshare schemes or whatever where it
for sure.
it really seems like very manipulative, like what they do on the front end to get people to come to the meeting. But it must uh, it must work because they keep doing it, right?
My
Yeah,
sis,
yeah,
my ex's, my ex had her mom had bought like 4 timeshares somehow. Like she got like ripped off, and not one, but like bought like 4 somehow, and had like a timeshare like lawyer like going out there and trying to like sue for her or whatever. But yeah, it's really interesting. I think that the more conversations too, like I have like a thing today where I'm going to like a Christmas party thing, and this lady that's there, she's gonna be a client at some point. Like she kind of already agreed to some videos or whatever. And I think a part of it too is just making sure that like if I am around, like I can't always do this, right? Because I'm in LA and this person happens to be in LA. So they invited me to a party or whatever, and I'll go there and show face because I know that like at the end of the day, like if I can do that, that'll help move the business forward at some point. So like I'm not super social like that too either. So it takes me a minute to get, you know, at a party with a bunch of people that I don't know. So like I think that once I'm trying to get more out there though, and like even like networking events just in general, because I find that when I do go out to events and things, that usually something good comes out of it somehow.
at your current price tag, this is also why it's not the worst thing. It's actually quite a good thing that like I feel like you're not like super super high ticket right now, right? But
Right.
you're at this like nice happy medium, like $1,500 for 8 videos. That's pretty like it's pretty great for both parties, right?
Right.
So you're sort of priced at a you're at a price point where even if you went to say some social events, like local social events or whatever, and you run into some like real estate agent or some lawyer, right? Who, thing about those professions is like, yeah, those people can make a lot of money, right? They can be high six figures. They can be seven figures too. They can be multi seven figures, but not all of them.
Mhm.
Not every real estate agent is actually killing it, right? But I'm thinking like $1,500 for 8 high quality short form videos. Even a real estate agent who's doing pretty well, like that like mid to high, or even, yeah, just six figures in general might consider going with that package, right? Because those 8 videos, if they're actually interesting, they're talking about real estate, they're speaking to that person's like ideal clients, and then they can just do whatever they want with them. It's like he can post that on Facebook, he can post that on LinkedIn, YouTube, etc. He can get a lot of value out of that, right? Because how many real estate agents are actually have videos of themselves speaking on that subject? It
Yeah,
builds like
not
massive trust, right? So
a lot of people are like stuck. This guy even yesterday, like he's like, I have all these projects going on, but I'm not on video. It's like I don't want to sit there and film myself. So I think a lot of it maybe it's like hand holding and just having someone that's done it and like knows what they're doing. Same thing with the ghostwriting, right? It's just like knowing that like you guys can get it done, knowing that they don't have to work for a month of writing this content out. So I think a lot of it has to do with like the ease. Vincenzo too, like this might be a good market for all of us to go after, but there's real estate fund managers are an interesting one to go after because I worked in that space for like a hot minute. But what they do is they like go out, these fund managers go out and raise like 10, 20, $30 million, and then they go and deploy that into some sort of like real estate um play. Like it could be like uh it could be like apartment buildings, whatever. They go raise the fund from high net worth individuals and they need something to like get back to those investors. And each investor is going to end up paying like a lot of money. You know, they could be like a 50,000, $100,000 investment, and it's all like high net worth individuals. So I think a lot of it too, like all of our products, right? The more money that the person's working making, and the more kind of money is in that system, and the higher the stakes of like getting in that revenue for like the investors, like yeah, like that's like nothing. Like they don't care about $1,500. Like that's when you start talking about like, big money probably. But yeah, I think that a lot of it too is that's what's nice though too about like targeting, right? Like if you're targeting, you can go after whoever you want. Like I've been like thinking about going after some people in like Y Combinator, because that list is public, and their Y Combinators produce like, Airbnb, Stripe, all these different companies. I've done some videos with a dude from something called Orange DAO, which was some project that was built on Y Combinator. But there's like probably like 500 to 1,000 companies on there that are all startups. All the people that went to like Stanford, Berkeley, like all like fucking super smart people, very technical people, but probably don't know how to fucking like know how to build technical engineering products, but don't know how to like market or talk about them efficiently. So I think that um, I'm probably going to go through that list at some point too and hit some of those people up. And yeah, I think that that's a good one because that one in itself, it's like very high caliber people that probably have some communication problems because of their
okay, I
engineers.
see what Y Combinator is. It's a startup accelerator. It's like a community type thing, eh?
Yeah, well, Sam Altman of OpenAI was the head
Okay.
of Y Combinator before he started OpenAI, and then he was responsible for getting Airbnb in there. So like Airbnb came to him, had that idea, and they're like, "Oh, that sounds like not a great idea for whatever reason." And then they're like, "Okay, like we like these guys at Airbnb. They seem like they know how to hustle." And then they like got them through the program, and then basically, yeah, that's it's an incubator where all these startups that are kind of changing the world come through there. Come through there. It's almost like a growth ghost, but for like startups.
Yeah, exactly. Man, yeah, that's smart. Targeting can actually be really tough because you can think, okay, yeah, I've got it locked in, right? But then because I've done a lot of it with like Sales Navigator and like this other tool that I use where I can then automate the connection requests. So they just like, as long as I turn on that tool every day, like it will send out those connections, so I don't have to go through manually and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
And you can think you have it pretty dialed in, right? But it's like what you were saying earlier about how, you talked about Manhattan Island and like knowing that that's a very rich area. And yeah, the world is so global these days, right? So a CEO founder could be, they could be filthy rich, but they could be living somewhere in like I don't know, some little small town in the States just because they like that like peace and quiet. But the what's the higher probability? There might be a higher probability, like kind of your theory there, that no, they're living in like this rich neighborhood on Manhattan Island because they want to be like closer to the action, but still off in their kind of like more secluded rich area and that. So like thinking about stuff like that, or like this, this Combinator thing where you're being even more targeted than just like CEO founders of tech companies worth this much money, but dialing it down to like these like little geographic pockets, or like a certain like accelerator program, that kind of thing. I think that's pretty cool. Uh,
Yeah,
let me ask you a question.
sure.
Uh, are you writing more? Are you writing more for LinkedIn these days? Are you writing for Substack first or LinkedIn first?
What do you mean by first? I guess. Do you mean am I prioritizing one versus the other? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like what I really mean is like when you're creating your content, are you thinking about it from like the angle of this is going out to Substack first, or
Uh,
or are you writing it more for LinkedIn? Which
yeah,
platform are you writing for?
I think that my Substack and my LinkedIn is kind of looking completely different for me specifically. And it's kind of like on purpose. Like, for example, like I just did a newsletter that came out and it was like 1,500 words. I never really wrote that long on LinkedIn. And to be completely honest, I was getting kind of lost in some of it because it was kind of longer or whatever. And it was about when I was 29 years old, I hit this jump in Park City, Utah called King's Crown. It was this massive jump. Um, and me and my mom were going up on this hill or whatever. And she's like, don't be a pussy. Just go ahead and hit this thing or whatever. And I was like, dude, that's fucking kind of a crazy thing for a mom to say to their son when they could kill themselves off this jump. And I remember like I didn't have any friends with me. It was like in this big ass park or whatever. This thing's, I don't know, 60 feet long. I go like set up my bindings, put on like this block party song called Tulips, like this like version that was kind of more like had like a beat to it that got me into like a flow state. And I just kind of just said fuck it, like got like in position, did like one or two setup turns and then just blasted like a back five off of the thing. And like it was fucking terrifying. I ended up eating shit, but I was going so fast down the angle of the jump that I just sort of skipped because like physics, like if you go fast enough, you're gonna be fine. But if you go too fast, you're gonna overshoot the jump. So a lot of like professional snowboarding has to do with like speed and like knowing like how confident you are with your speed and your tricks and like what tricks that you feel comfortable, what safety tricks you feel comfortable over such a big feature. So some
Yeah,
of it's dialing more into like things like that, like about like take that particular newsletter was about like taking leaps and like being prepared and about how although the word pussy was crude and I would never use the word pussy on LinkedIn and I could see how people like cringe and freak the fuck out, but I also like the fact that it was my mom telling me don't be a pussy, so it kind of added this layer of like this like pattern interrupt involved in it as well.
yeah,
So I'm trying to go a little bit different on I'm trying to go like full throttle on Substack, like unfiltered, fuck it, like whoever's gonna like buy into this, they're gonna buy into it. And then a lot of LinkedIn lately for me has been kind of just having fun, just talking shit about people that are on there and can't say what they want. Um, yeah, someone said love me some block party. Yeah, there's a couple block party songs that have like these just like aggressive drum beats that kind of get you going. And hanging out with professional snowboarders too, like it reminded me a lot of like hanging out with Dakota and like those guys too, because like I had one friend named Mason Aguirre that was like fourth place in the U.S. Olympics that competed against Sean White in 2006, So when I moved to Mammoth, like he gave me a couple snowboards, jackets from Burden, and I got to hang out with like a lot of those dudes. And a lot of the times, like when you're talking to these guys, their level of like commitment is on a much different level than your average person. Like they have a level of balls that are just fucking huge, right? Just like kind of like ghostwriters and yourself and other people, they're just like mentally they're nuts. So to answer your question, I think that I'm trying to like let like super loose on Substack and not like give a fuck. But I'm also trying to figure out like that newsletter didn't have any offer in it or anything like that. It didn't have any like it was kind of like warming up whatever I had and just sort of expressing myself into something I was struggling with mentally. So I don't really know if like I think about that like do these newsletters need to have some sort of like end goal or whatever or like because sometimes I just like to write just because it's cathartic, right? And like that one wasn't really like it wasn't there wasn't like really no commercial part of it.
Yeah, no, like my opinion is that especially in the beginning, you don't have to have like a CTA on every email. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, especially in the beginning, like it's just about people getting to know you more, and building your audience, right, and building that trust. Now, if if it like feels if it feels right, like if you've been talking in an email and it's just very easy to then transition into a PS that directly does relate in some way, then I would say even in the beginning, yeah, it's a good opportunity to drop a PS, right?
Right.
Because if like for you, if you were talking about how you overcame your fear of being on video, and then you dropped a PS and you said that that's part of like not in these exact words, but it's like that's part of what I do with my service now because I noticed that almost everybody, like even big time CEOs, founders, have trouble getting on video. It's something that's out of their wheelhouse. It makes them uncomfortable in the beginning, right? And then if you were to plug there when that whole email has been about your own transformation story of like you know fear of being on camera to overcoming it, then that would make perfect sense, right? Today, today in my newsletter, my PS or call to action was actually just to go check out the original note that inspired the newsletter. So
Mm.
sometimes your CTA, yeah, that's another thing too, is like your CTA doesn't always have to be like an offer pitch. It can also be like, oh, hey, yeah, if you liked this newsletter, check out like the note that inspired it. There's some interesting conversations going on there in the comments, which just actually just does
Mm.
a full loop and drives traffic back to my note
Mm.
potentially too, right? Yeah, so you could like sometimes the CTA is like if it's on LinkedIn, you might be plugging to Substack. If it's on Substack, I mean, you could plug back to LinkedIn. I mean, that one I've been doing less. You seem to be driving more traffic from LinkedIn to Substack, not the other way around, which makes sense.
I I will
Yeah.
note too that like when I'm on Substack, I feel like a lot more at home, like around like a lot of people. Like I feel like they're these Substacks more my actual people, like people that I actually hang out with and like and like respect. And LinkedIn is kind of like this other weird kind of sterile monster place where I have to be. But I don't really want to be there, but at the same time, like if if that's where like the business comes from, and me and you kind of talked about that too, like when we first started going live on Substack, we were kind of mentioning like I was kind of getting to the head like, oh fuck LinkedIn, like let's go to Substack full on or whatever. And it's really easy to just get into that thing where it's like this shiny toy or whatever, and like, all right, we're just gonna ditch LinkedIn altogether or whatever. Even though it's like working, just because just because I don't like it personally or whatever. I just wish they would change. It's like being in a relationship with an abusive person.
Um, yeah, I feel like my newsletter today kind of like struck the perfect balance where it was like kind of my full opinion on the whole like LinkedIn and Substack thing, and basically like to just boil it down, it was just that LinkedIn basically has always been like destined for failure as an authenticity platform. Like it's just not where the most authentic content is going to be because it is the professional platform where HR, your boss, investors, your customers, your potential clients are all breathing over your neck, right? So, it's never going to be that more raw, authentic platform, right? And that's why platforms like Substack and Twitter are where you're going to be finding like just the more real, authentic content. And it's interesting because it's like it's not to say that your employer, investors, HR department couldn't couldn't find you on Substack, but it's just not the first place that they look. You know, they don't go snooping around on Substack the way they do on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is just it's just known. That's the first place they're going to go to. That's the first place they're going to look. So
And plus,
yeah.
Substack's a little confusing when you're new. Like you have that like back end homepage and then that website page and then a mobile app, and they're all kind of like a little disjointed. They're not like seamless. You could tell that they weren't built like they weren't built with everything mapped out at the start. They kind of just built as they went. It seems like potentially because it seems kind of bastardized some of the things that they like. I don't know. The flows seem a little. I mean, I love what they're doing, and a lot of after you understand like this flow, for example, of like cutting live video or recording live and then it getting chopped up automatically and then getting pushed to YouTube because we had that. You had a video from our last slide that had like 300 views or something like that that we didn't touch at all. It just like literally went over there. And people asked me, they're like, "Well, weren't you scared that like that it's gonna be something bad?" I was like, "Well, the conversation happened. People saw it. So what's the fucking difference, right?" Like I think there's this
Well,
level of control.
Substack seems to do a good enough job that like it hasn't put together any. I haven't seen any short that it's created from these lives where it's just like, really Substack, you chose that.
Right.
It seems to be good at picking up like the better subjects
Yeah.
from the lives, right?
Yeah.
Is this one also going over to YouTube?
Yeah. It's going over to YouTube. It's cool too because it's like an autumn. I think that that could be an offer for someone right there if like they could figure out a way to like get their client set up where it's like a value add. They teach them how to get on Substack. They connect all these things in the background because they don't know how to do that necessarily, and then push that for them. Write their newsletter, but they're like, "Hey, I'm going to set up this whole system for you where it's going to be a flywheel trap." Da 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 da. I think people would be into it. Or I was even talking with Kelsey from Growth Ghost, and I was saying, why don't you become like a because she loves interviewing people, and I was like, why don't you become like a podcaster? What is it like a podcast as a service where you go to like these like companies that are tech companies, whatever, and then instead of them paying an in-house podcaster or marketing person, maybe they're paying you 10 grand, like for you to go in there and host it, produce it, get 10 of those, then, like you have like yourself a nice little business. I don't know what the pricing looks like, but it just seems like there's always people that want like a co-host or things like that. Cause even like the last company that I worked for, the CEO there, like he was technical. He was an engineering mind. I don't think he actually coded, but I remember when I was filming with him, like I would go out there with my DSLR and he'd be like, fuck, motherfucker, fuck, fuck, fuck. Like he would like fuck up so much and just be angry, didn't know what to say, how to say it. And he was just so in his head. And I was just like sitting there with the director of sales and him, like, he's like freaking out or whatever. And I'm just sitting there filming him and I was like, this has to be a problem with like a lot of CEOs must have this because otherwise they would be on video, right? Because I think a lot of people just struggle with that. So I think there's an offer there too of like combining some of these tools because I don't know of a lot of people that are actually using these because I think we're pretty early on some of these things because like we didn't figure out some of that clipping thing until after we just tried it and then
I don't think we had any clue on when
yeah
we did the first one. We didn't know we were going to get short form video clips, right? You didn't know
yeah
either, right?
I didn't know. Yeah, I was like, okay, that's cool.
That was a nice little surprise, after we just did that live. I think we just thought it would be just something, we do the live, it then like lives on Substack. People can watch it either for I guess it is like permanent, right? Like on your profile. Like it's
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
right?
and it's
So
all I set it up just to dump into my Spotify account for Creators Copywriting Break, so this will go automatically over there too. So it'll sit in both places. I just figured that we had the conversation, might as well just allow people to discover it however they discover it, right?
I think you need to change that name to
We could change it
main
to something.
character mode.
Yeah, yeah, let's do it. Oh, you want main character mode? Okay, that's not a
Yeah,
bad idea. Yeah,
or something. I think main character mode is a I think it's a great name for what you're doing here, like here with these lives. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Because yeah, main character mode, man. Like even although it's a little bit kind of like it's sort of for a younger audience. I don't
Viewing.
know if like the boomer and up generation will know like what main character mode is, but like those who are sort of a little bit more tapped into to current pop culture or whatever will get it.
That actually just made me think too. Like, so with Substack, like even the lives, right? They give you like, here's like some things to promote your live, or the newsletter. Here's some things to promote your newsletter. That's probably a good thing for us to think about for like clients too. Like, how do you wow clients by just these little tiny touches that are not crazy, but that are like really nice to like, they're like, oh, we're talking about them after. That's something to think about. I mean, I don't know if like, just something that it made me think when we were talking about that, like, how do we wow our own clients?
Well, it's you mentioned like okay, so like lives and integrating that stuff like like YouTube and that kind of thing. I already thought to myself kind of recently that even hosting lives for people could be a service.
Yeah,
Like even
absolutely.
even this right here, like you know, if yeah, like if if you were to do four of these with a person per month or whatever, kind of like the same way we're doing now, it does have a lot of value, right? Like, and then if you also
Like
integrated that
newsletter.
back end stuff, it's going to go to YouTube stuff. Did you hear that in the background?
Yeah,
That
I
honk?
did. Someone's ready for you.
All right. Um, Anyway, yeah, like then if you also set up the integration where it's going over to YouTube, it's going to all these other platforms, even that alone has a ton of value as a service.
Yeah, I mean, I can
Yeah,
imagine like a
I'm still
live.
recovering from that honk. That gave me a mild stroke. Should be
I'm
fun.
thinking with the live and maybe like newsletter thing on the back end where you write the newsletter based upon the conversation or something like that. Yeah, there's definitely something there for sure. Because I also feel like because we're early and not a lot of people understand the capability of some of this tech they built, like
Yeah.
that part of it is part of the like. I think that people will be like, oh wow, this was really cool what you just made.
Yeah, actually, about that sort of like earliness to the platform, and kind of also relating to something else you just said about how like you almost described it kind of like almost like a clunkiness or something like of Substack. I don't know if it's like really a clunkiness or if it's just kind of like Substack. Actually, it has a ton of integrations and a ton of things you can do with it, and because of that, like the back end settings are there's just a lot you can do. So they're not completely straightforward. Like there's even, somebody Barrett who's on this live here pointed out to me, I don't even have my welcome email set up like properly. It's just the generic Substack one. And it was like on this same day where I had posted about how you can you can make your newsletters. You can have an auto text to like AI voice option that you can turn on, right? But like I gathered that a lot of people didn't actually know about that because I was looking at different people's newsletters and noticing a lot of people didn't have that option set up. And like there's so many newsletters that I would like to consume in this, but the reality is I just haven't had the time, right? So I'm more likely to actually listen to somebody's newsletter. So I made a post about that, just about how you can turn that feature on, and then this AI voice reads out your newsletter, right? So on that very day where I posted that, um, he had also sent me a message like from a couple weeks back, pointing out that I didn't have my welcome email set up, but that was new to him, the whole like audio part of the newsletter. So I feel like there's a lot of different things that people don't are just discovering about this platform, right?
Yeah,
It's not completely linear because there's so much that you can do that you kind of have to figure it out for yourself. You have to figure it out a little bit for yourself and then tailor it specifically for you. Because like not everybody um is going to set up that integration to go live from Substack to YouTube. But it would be in their benefit if they did. A lot of people are going to miss that whole like autoplay AI voice thing with your newsletter, right? But it'd be more beneficial if you did set it up, right? So because it has so much you can actually do with it, it does feel more clunky.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and also too, like when I was looking initially through like the timeline, like I didn't know for some reason, like when you click on something, you don't see necessarily the comments of each thing right away. It was like a little bit of like it wasn't super intuitive. So I think that anytime you have like a new platform, there's going to be things that like you don't really know where things live. Like even like starting this live, I don't really know other place to start. I know you're supposed to be able to do it from like the desktop, but it's not clear to me where on the desktop that you do that. But I think that even when I first did the initial live with you, I think you're like two screens in to like when you actually add the other person. So like I think that sometimes when you're using new tech, you're a little bit worried because you're like, I don't know how to use this, and I'm like trying to figure it out on the fly or whatever. And like there's a little bit of that happens too. But Tim Denning actually uses that too. That voice feature. It had like an Australian person on his thing that reads it to you. That's a nice thing to have. I'm gonna probably set that up on mine too. But yeah, there's a lot of settings probably that need to be tweaked, and I haven't done my open. I haven't spent. I need to spend the time to write an open email and maybe like a video or something like that. I just haven't done it yet. I know that that's like something that needs to happen too. Have you thought about what you're going to put in yours? Are you going to do a video, or are you going to do like just like some sort of basic welcome?
you know what? It would be good for me to do a video. It would be good for me to do a video. Just that bit more like authentic, that bit more real, and creating way more rapport. Um, yeah. So thanks for pointing that out. I should do a video. Um, yeah, or even an audio would be better than just text, right? Uh, but yeah, in my opinion, like that's a game changer. It doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. Like, oh yeah, whatever. People can read my newsletter, right? But you're making it so much easier if you give them a play button, right? Because then they can be doing anything. Like they could be out for a walk. They could be, doing dishes. It doesn't. It could be anything, right? So so yeah, you might as well make it that bit more accessible for people.
You have a lot more experience than I do, like long form writing. I'm pretty used to short form, like kind of just like top of funnel posts, I suppose. Like, how do you think about your long form writing? Because I was noticing that I was getting a little lost, like when the piece is like super big. So I know that I probably need to bake a little bit more time into things because I kind of was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna get this done and get it done in one session. And I know that obviously it's probably not the ideal thing to do it. Like, it's probably better to give yourself a little breathing room, some time. But how do you? Is there ways that you're I don't know if my ADD is like fuck it, like I'm sick of reading this thing, or I don't know. Sometimes when I'm doing stuff like that, I'm not used to like that long form format yet, so I'm still building my laps up.
Well, I'll have to. I saw your it was called something like the something something purple sky,
Y-
the snowboarding one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that one, yeah.
So I'm gonna read that because that sounds really interesting. It's hilarious that your mom called you a pussy. That's hilarious. Yeah, so I look forward to checking that out. So I'll get a much better idea of sort of like where you're at with that. But like I don't know, like there's different types of long form newsletters or posts, right? But there's definitely like one type would be where it's just, you have a singular concept. Like let's say the one I did like today that I put out, and it's on just how kind of yeah, making the argument that like say that like LinkedIn has an authenticity problem, or was never gonna that was never gonna be the main thing with like for LinkedIn, right? It was going to be lacking in that area, but still an amazing platform for you know B2B like leads, and all that aspect of things, networking, whatever. Um, and then just like the entire email is just really this argument, but with different like subheadings underneath. And it's important that you kind of ask yourself like the questions that then complete the idea. Like, or like in this particular email here, some of the subheadings under this are, well, first of all, in the opening, I talk about how this came from a note from a few days ago that got 96 likes and, clearly like hit a nerve with people or whatever. Um, and then the first subheading is called the invisible box, kind of like talking about how LinkedIn has this invisible box where it's like when you're writing for LinkedIn, no matter how much of a badass you are or whatever, you're going to know in the back of your mind, I'm still posting this on LinkedIn. And whether it's potential clients, investors, customers, HR department, CEO, your boss, like you are sort of writing through a certain filter just because of LinkedIn. So that's like right off the bat why it kind of does have an authenticity problem, right? Then the next one was called the side hustle problem. Um, and I talked about this is kind of like a kind of a story example. And it goes into how like I know a woman who's stuck in this exact trap. She's got a corporate W-2 job in sales, but she's trying to build a ghostwriting business on the side. She's chosen LinkedIn as her platform because, yeah, it's great for B2B. It's where your potential clients are, but she can't actually say she's a ghostwriter. She can't really pitch her services. She can't even list in her bio properly that she is a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
So she's just gonna like she just posts about writing and like can't maybe ghostwriting, but probably won't even spell that out, right? Because it's just too obvious to her employer, maybe. Um, and that she can't really own it with like conviction because she still has this
Hi.
corporate job, right? And then another thing I went on to say, I think this is actually a really important point, is that like so I mean her whole this particular woman here, right? Her whole premise for wanting to bridge into ghostwriting is probably because she's starting to see the corporate world, the current corporate climate for what it truly is, where it's like it's become riskier than ever to just rely on one corporation for all your income, right?
Oh yeah.
And it's like everybody's head feels like it's on the chopping block right now. Thousands of people getting laid off, right? And then this also even adds to this like particular problem in her case here because it's like so you're trying to bridge out of the corporate world or at least have a side hustle, but then by doing that, you're also maybe putting yourself at more risk of bringing added unwanted attention to you because you're starting this side hustle and you don't want to attract this kind of attention from your employer. So she's also feeling like she's kind of like bringing too much attention and maybe putting her head even more on the chopping block for that reason too, amongst all the other layoffs and stuff like this, right? So it creates this thing where you basically have to create this watered down version of yourself, this sort of like pseudo brand. And honestly, she'd probably just be better posting exclusively on Substack and just actually saying, I'm a ghostwriter, this is what I do, and not even having to hide it. Because what are the chances of her employer going over to her Substack? Right. And I mean, she could even keep her notes a little bit more top of funnel and that kind of thing and not even talk about ghostwriting that much. And then make it where the newsletter is where she says explicitly, I'm a ghostwriter. I'm on this journey. I'm in this writing program, blah, 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 and spells it out even more. Because is your boss going to subscribe to your Substack newsletter?
No.
I don't know. At that point, they're probably closer to being a fan than than out to like fire you, right? So
Jack says yes, Mike. Income diversification plus personal brand equals security. And Jack does some really good notes on like escaping like the 9 to 5 and just like that whole kind of cutthroat world of I call it like Hunger Games a lot of the times, like for the corporate America. Or I just feel like yeah, that whole thing of you have to diversify and go out there and build your own thing because I feel like And that makes me really sad that she's in that position that she can't really express herself, and it's kind of hard that she's kind of having to toe the line of keeping her job and then not being able to fully express herself as like a ghostwriter on LinkedIn. That's just such a shitty place to be in because like I don't know, like that's what that happened to me too, and like it didn't end well for me because I fought back and I didn't want to be in that position. And I ended up talking to HR about it. I was like, this person cannot tell me what to like. Like my boss cannot tell me what I can and can't write on my social media. It's mine. I fought back with them, but I realized that HR though they're on the side of the company. They don't give a fuck about you. I didn't realize that for whatever reason when I was kind of dumb. And I was like, oh, HR is probably like a safe place. No, they only care about the company, and you're a liability if like you open your mouth.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. Like it's definitely positioned like, you know, they're there to help the employee, and that's true, right? But yeah, they're also looking out for the best interests of the corporation, right? So yeah, if
How
they
do you
found
think?
out that
I was gonna say, how do you think about like popping off like on LinkedIn since you don't have these corporate shackles over you and you're a writer? You could easily say things just that you know are gonna pop off. And is that usually like ideas about like, look, you're playing it safe on LinkedIn because you have to, and like just calling things out for what they are. How are you thinking about some of this writing on LinkedIn just for fun to get it like to have posts pop off?
yeah, I've definitely pushed more buttons than most people on LinkedIn. Definitely ruffled more feathers. I can give you a couple examples of some things
Sure.
I've said on LinkedIn. Some of them I knew that I was being like, some of them I purposely was being like polarizing. But important caveat: I've never just been polarizing just to be polarizing. Like anything I do say is pretty close to my actual like close to my actual beliefs, or it's satirical.
Right.
Okay, so one was like the the open to work badge is making you look like desperate.
That's a
Okay,
good one.
that one got under a lot of people's skin. However, I was being a little strategic with that one too, because my ideal clients, right, usually are not people with the open to work badge. So that one actually did that worked well. It got a lot of traffic. It did ruffle some feathers. A lot of people thought it was very insensitive that I was going after people who are just honestly just trying to get a job and this. But like I was also just being like honest in that like the way I look at the open to work badge is it
Positioning problem.
it's a positioning thing. And I but here's the thing I did do is I did give a bunch of actual, and this is I think what saved it. Because if I only talked about how it's just making you look desperate, that would have just been kind of like just negativity. I actually made it very actionable. And I said that like, well, imagine if you actually approached your LinkedIn kind of almost like a creator and like you're looking for a job, but you started posting about, you know, maybe you start posting about the kind of job that you are looking for, some of your skills and that kind of thing, but like weave it into this like kind of like the narrative stuff that we do in this, like maybe even some like like personal story stuff in this. I think, although it sounds very unorthodox, if a person was to do that, I don't think that they'd be looking for a job for very long. I think they would get picked up pretty quick, and they might even find like their ideal job, to be honest. Because yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe in their minds they think that like people will see the open to work and then like raise their hand and go reach out to them, but it's just not the way that the economy works. Like what ends up happening is you put that on there and you kind of look like you're that you can't find a job because and you almost position yourself in a way that you're desperate. And I hate saying that and I understand like the whole like oh it's under there's people that are struggling or whatever and then da, 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 but I totally get it because like it just makes them look worse, especially if they've had like high positions. They were like a VP or like a CEO, and then all of a sudden you're open for work. it's sad, but we look at like stories as humans as arcs, and we're like, what happened there? Like, how did you go from there to there? Like, it's not a good look. And I'm not saying to control a narrative so much where you're like trying to be like sterile to the point. Like, I think that it's good to show your fuck up, show when times things got messed up. Like, I talk a lot about like breaking my jaw and losing my job last November on the same day, but I don't like. I think it'd be one thing if I just stopped in that position, but I overcame it and then got out of the W-2 market so that I healed from it. And I'm not like trauma dumping onto like, the market or whatever. And I think that that's what one thing that I've realized is like if something like is fucked up, I probably want to share it, but at least allow myself to process whatever bad thing happened before I talk about it. Or maybe like I don't
Oh,
need to
yeah,
process it,
yeah,
but you know what I mean?
yeah. And it actually it's kind of comparable as well to like good building in public versus bad building in public. Like, you know, it's like things like the open to work badge or like I made a funny post about like no, I made a kind of like satirical post about how it's like bad version of building in public. I just landed my very first client at $5,000, like, yay, like whatever, right? And they follow you on social media, and now they're like, what the hell? I just hired a complete beginner and paid them $5,000.
Yeah, that actually always tripped me up too. Like when your clients are watching and they're seeing what you're talking about on the timeline with them. I think that that part of it kind of freaked me out a little bit when I was a little bit greener because like I didn't want that exact thing to happen. Like me talking shit about how I just made all this money or whatever, and like tooting my horn or whatever, then all of a sudden, "Oh, yeah, fucker. Well, not anymore. I'm gonna take that account away from you." And, like, I don't know, that always kind of worried me a little because like, there's a little bit of, like, this, like, you kinda need to tell people what you're doing so that they're interested in the journey, so to speak, but at the same time, I do worry about, is that gonna come back to haunt me somehow?
Yeah, this is another reason why I like Substack too, is that I can talk about different different aspects of what I'm doing in ghostwriting and that kind of thing too. And I can talk about even stuff that's going on LinkedIn, um, in a way where I don't feel like I'm just saying too much. Like landing a coaching client or something a couple weeks ago from LinkedIn. I'm not going to talk about that on LinkedIn, right? But I can weave that into like the whole Substack narrative, like in a newsletter or something. See, I probably wouldn't even post it as a note. I would put it more as a
Deeper.
newsletter for the people who are, becoming like a closer, a more like true fan or are getting more into your world and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm glad that we have Substack for that reason because I know that a lot of, like, the people that I'm working with are not on Substack. And I'm also trying to, like, not get excited and tell them to go there. Like, part of my nature is, like, when I'm excited about things, I like telling people to try things, but I'm also getting to the point now where I'm like, I don't necessarily want my clients on Substack with me. I'm not that I'm against it. If they're already there, cool, but I don't wanna be the one that's bringing them there.
Yeah, I also I resonate with that too. Like I've definitely posted about Substack. It's especially when I was like when I just got on the platform. There's those first like 1 or 2 weeks. I am still promoting over and this, but yeah, like yeah, you don't really care like about like every one of your prospects and all your clients to come over to Substack and that kind of thing. And the reality is it's a lot more likely that the other ghostwriters, freelancers, copywriters, creators, and those people would get on Substack a lot sooner than the 7-figure CEO founder.
You're not writing any, like, LinkedIn has the ability to write newsletters, I know, right? And I know some people use that feature. I don't personally. You don't write any newsletters, right, on LinkedIn? They're just all kind of on Substack?
No, I did write some LinkedIn newsletters. Yeah,
Any
I
luck with
did.
that, or is that worth its effort, or is it
I think it added something. It added something to my brand. It the thing about those newsletters is they do actually have like an SEO benefit to them. Like they are like they'll rank up on Google
Hmm.
potentially, right? Unlike unlike just a regular LinkedIn post, they can actually rank via keyword and all this. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah, so that's why I first experimented with like the newsletters and articles over on LinkedIn. But I don't see as much benefit in that as I do with a Substack newsletter. Like way more benefit to a Substack newsletter.
Have you
The fact you're actually building a list here and that kind of thing. But I really should, as I continue to write Substack newsletters, the ones that are more LinkedIn related, that would not just be totally random. I should repurpose them back to LinkedIn as articles and newsletters. That's kind of that's kind of my approach. Is once you see something has like has become a validated idea, like it performed well on one of these platforms, is to then repurpose it to the other ones. So
Yeah, I saw there's this guy that's like a camera coach named Dalton. I don't remember his last name, but he was talking about like how one of those videos that he was coaching this guy on popped off because they did like a keyword long tail thing. They like reverse engineered which keywords had traffic, and then they built the video around those keywords. I think Google allows this, like in their AdWords. I don't. Have you played around with that, any of that at all? I haven't really touched some of that stuff, but I thought that was interesting to think about like which keyword you're trying long tail to go for, and then reverse engineering what you're doing from it to make your content.
I haven't gone super heavy into that territory. No. Um, maybe maybe a little bit, but not like full. Did you say AdWords, like Google AdWords?
Yeah, I know that AdWords has like a keyword planner in there. So that's why the AdWords came up. But in general, I know that there's ways of like seeing which keywords long tail rank and like if there's search volume for them, so that when you're
Yep.
building a video or like a newsletter, that you know that there's already market demand there, so that you could kind of tap into that there. I haven't really done much research myself on that, but it's something that I was gonna probably explore at some point.
Something I did play around with at least once or twice was the site called Ask the Public,
Uh-huh.
or no, no, Answer the Public. Answer the Public, because you can see like different questions that are being asked in various niches and that kind of thing
Well,
or various subjects, right? And it gives you like this wheel and shows you how often certain questions are being asked under different niches and topics.
that's cool. I
So
actually remember
yeah,
looking into Quora a while back too. Like, yeah, there's probably like some things in there to get better at like what to write about. Like a little bit of a process there that I haven't really explored so much. A lot of the times I'm just kind of writing from the hip, I suppose, instead of like actually going in there and like looking to see what people are searching for and backing into the data.
yeah, um, yeah. I think that we're we're kind of lucky in a way because we're in like writing communities and stuff like that. Like if you were completely disconnected from that, you probably you would 100% you need some of these tools, right? To get a better idea of what people are really talking about in your industry and your niche. But because I hear so much of what people are struggling with at a beginner, intermediate, and even like advanced level in this, so a lot of my content comes from that, from different conversations I have with people. Because then I know, like, yeah, this is an idea. This is a question that's actually on people's minds.
What are
So
some
I like
beginner
that.
questions out of curiosity that you hear from like writing? Like, what is it? Fear of like looking stupid, just fear. I guess some people, if they're really beginner, they're scared to even publish, I suppose, right? Depending on how new they are in green.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, here's a few. Um, One question is, it's about niche, and It's actually not a total beginner question. It's on its way to intermediate, let's say, but it's about niche, and it's kind of like this. They'll and it specifically relates to ghostwriting, maybe like the beginner ghostwriter in this one I've seen come up, but it would relate to just about anything too, like copywriting. You're just could be anything. You could be an SEO guy who's like building a brand on LinkedIn or something, right? And sometimes there's a misunderstanding of like just niche and what they should actually be talking about on their page. And they'll think that because they have an interest maybe in, let's just say the person had an interest in like food or something like this, and like um food and recipes in restaurants or something like this, right? Would there be a way to be a ghostwriter and like also talk about food and restaurants and recipes in this, and then sort of use that content to like appeal to and like attract your ICP that say like, let's say you wanted to work with like restaurateurs, like big time restaurateurs or something. Would there be a way of writing about restaurants and like food and recipes in this to attract those people strategically? Yeah, for sure. Um, but a lot of ghostwriters probably should write about writing and ghostwriting as like their main sort of like authority content. Like it should be maybe built based more around your skill. But if you did want to go like, yeah, super niche and like you want to work with, I know a ghostwriter on LinkedIn. She writes for, I think it's like people in the yachting industry or something like this. Like,
Interesting. Super niche.
yeah, maybe, yeah, like in that sort of like maybe it's the buying and selling of yachts and it's like super yachts or something, right? Which it's
Oh
probably
wow.
a pretty smart niche too, because like obviously those people
Big
have
money.
money, right? So, would it make sense for her to do like a top of funnel post about like super yachts or something like this? Yeah, but probably even with her, a lot of her content's going to be about like writing, ghostwriting, content marketing, and this kind of thing, and then plus her personal story and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of confusion in the beginning about like niche and what people should be talking about on their page and that kind of thing.
Are a lot of ghostwriters too, like, kind of focus only on one specific thing, like yachting, or a lot of times is it, like, very all over the map? And it seems too, because like, to write in a specific voice, like, for example, if it was, like, crypto or blockchain, that in itself seems like it would be, like, one type of ghostwriting because it's so heavy and, like, you need to understand that world enough to, like, write about it. So, I guess part of it probably is, like, what's the person's experience and background? I know Hod's on this call, like, maybe since he's a developer, maybe that's why he leaned into this vibe coding thing or whatever. So is it part of it depends I suppose part of it comes from their background, right, where they're pulling from?
Yeah, I've seen both types of ghostwriters have success, right? I've gone I've typically gone a bit more broad. And so I've ended up working with people in like everything from like SEO to like CRM consulting was another guy, a paid ads agency owner, um, executive leadership coach, health and fitness coach, like a mindset coach guy. Uh, those are some of the ones that come to mind anyway. Um, but but then I've seen other people too where it's like they're just like the crypto ghostwriter, right? Or like the AI ghostwriter, right? Or ghostwriter just for like real estate real estate investors or something like this. I've seen those people have success too, right? But then on the flip side, there's a lot of big agencies who will pretty much write for almost any niche under the sun. But being so niche to just being like, say, like AI, right? Like Ahad, for example, if he was to be the AI ghostwriter, um, which by the way, AI ghostwriter. Like if you position yourself as the ghostwriter who uses I don't feel like that's strong. That's not strong positioning because
Mm.
anybody can use AI, right? But if you position yourself as the AI ghostwriter, like I write for the AI, like AI, like founders and CEOs, and like AI companies, right? AI startups. That's that's good positioning because that might be the thing that differentiates people, um, especially with AI writing tools, making everything kind of more accessible too. Having like really like having very specific knowledge, industry knowledge, where you know it inside and out, like the back of your hand, then you're bringing a lot to the table. Because when that CEO founder is talking to you about their niche, their industry, their company, their story, and all this, you just immediately you kind of get it right off the bat, and that will come through in the writing too. You're going to be writing from a place of like just of just knowing and understanding that industry, and it's gonna come across. So yeah, there's a lot to be said about like I think niching down for the current ghostwriting landscape.
I noticed too that like initially it seemed like maybe ghostwriters were trying to say that they didn't use AI, and then at some point they just sort of embrace it as part of their tools. Like Nicholas Cole talks about being an AI ghostwriter. Dakota talks about using AI in ghostwriting. So I'm just wondering, at one point, do you think they just embrace it instead of trying to hide from it? Because then I also see people on the timeline that act like that every thought that they've ever had is just from their head, and that maybe they don't use AI at all, or maybe they're just shaming people that do or whatever, into this thing of like, oh, it has to be pure and it has to be like completely from my fucking brain or whatever, otherwise it's shit. And to be honest, like we know that everyone probably uses tools to some sort of degree. So I'm just curious too on your thoughts on that because it seems like you have these like purists versus these, they want to shame all the people that don't 100% right, like without AI.
Yeah, so yeah, let me actually like break this down. So the cool thing is that you just mentioned like Dakota and you mentioned Nicholas Cole, right? So what both of those guys have in common is that they're selling ghostwriting to either
Ghostwriters.
ghostwriters or people who want to be ghostwriters, right? So it's very different because you can say become an AI ghostwriter. Like with AI writing tools, your job becomes so much easier. You can now write for 10 clients all by yourself because like AI makes it so much faster and so much more efficient, right? Like positioning it that way where you can become an AI ghostwriter, selling it to ghostwriters that way, that makes sense. Selling ghostwriting to CEOs and founders, even if you were selling to AI founders, I don't think that positioning yourself as the ghostwriter who uses AI is the best positioning.
Yeah.
Now, if it comes up on like a sales call or something like this, and it's like, and it does, by the way, like they'll sometimes ask, like, do you guys like? I'm okay with it or whatever, but like, do you guys use AI for the writing? You do want to be very careful. You want to be careful with how you answer that, right? Um, and and it should come from an honest place because hopefully you're not just letting AI write all the content for your clients, right? Um, but it should be like, yes, yeah, we use AI like strategically for certain parts of the content creation process, but at the end of the day, we also understand the importance of the human touch, right?
Right.
So we use AI for like the smartest positioning would be, oh yeah, 100%. We use AI to like, like this call that we're doing right now, like this interview call that we're doing right now, we use AI to pull from that transcript and pick out the best ideas from that transcript. And then we write drafts from there. But even that alone, picking out the best ideas that we discuss on the interview call speeds up the process, right? Or maybe we use it later for like the editing and refinement, but we still have an actual editor looking over the content and going, dotting every T, or dotting every I and crossing every T or whatever, and going through with a fine tooth comb, um, because we understand that human touch element. So we use it in different strategic, specific parts of the content creation process. We never completely outsource it to AI. That
Yeah.
is, I think, the smart positioning for a ghostwriter. Um, and I personally, I I actually like to kind of I like to I like to kind of shit on AI quite a bit. I like to attack it quite a bit. Um, because I think that's actually pretty smart uh, even if it wasn't smart, I'd still do it because it's my actual it's my actual thoughts. But I like to kind of bash AI a little bit, and a lot of ghostwriters do, because yeah, like if you just even with a transcript, if you just told AI like, now go ahead and write 30 days worth of content for this client just from this transcript, it's not gonna completely hit the nail on the head. Like,
Yeah.
not even close. It might get you 60% of the way there, like, but you're gonna have to go through and actually and refine it and all this, right? So, like, I would never, for my own content, and this is it's important to say this because it will show like the importance of like why you would not do this for clients too. I would never just like do one transcript, answer a bunch of questions, and then say to AI like, write all my entire month's content off of this.
Right.
I'd have to go through and refine it and like fine tune it from there, right?
Right.
But I can speed up the process like big time with AI and like voice to text,
Right.
right? So
I think it's also just being coming from a position of like this is part of the process. I'm not using it to think. I'm using it to help organize what's already there, like the thoughts that I've mined from you and did through the discovery call or the through the conversation. Like, I think that if they don't have conversations, I don't see ghostwriting would be a lot harder to me if people weren't having that recorded call, because then it's like, where are they getting the information from? They're like like that to me seems essential for this to work.
yeah, but the crazy part is I know well I know at least one big agency that's probably doing like 2 million $2 million, like $2 million annual revenue or whatever, right? So pretty big. And they do like one interview call and like that's it. So they have like the client fill out kind of like a long form, right? And then they do one interview call, and then the writers that they hire, all they have to work with from that point forward is one interview call and that form, and the answers to
Dang.
that form. Yeah, and I've even like spoken to some of the writers who have written for that agency, and they've told me it's pretty hard. And then here's the worst part is that like what ends up happening too is that even like clients will be kind of like, all right, well we've kind of already like spoken about this subject, like are we just beating a dead horse here or whatever, right? Um, so it becomes a problem. You can there's only there's only so many ways you can tell one story. Like, don't get me wrong. Yes, you can do multiple angles of one story, right? But it's good to like,
Mix it up.
at least every couple months, like do another interview call to get some more stories, some more relevant stuff. Like what happened last week? Like, tell me about that sales call that you had with that like 8-figure company like last week. That's better than like your most epic like milestone journey that you told once on that one interview call we did back then. Like tell me about that that story, that little anecdote that you had while you were walking your dog last week, and the epiphany that came to your head. Like that makes for more interesting content. And that's how like you and I'm sure, write our content as well. It's like
Yeah.
just epiphanies and stuff you have throughout the day. So if you have none of that for your clients, it's going to make for very bland content after a while.
Yeah. My next question too is like, how does an agency get to that size with having such shitty processes? And like, why
Um,
do people stay and buy it, continue to? Because agencies seem to charge like a lot of money for what they do, from my understanding.
the beautiful the beautiful part about it is that it shows something too. There's a lesson there. Well, yeah, and part of the lesson is that like just about everything works. And yeah, like so for those guys, like, yeah, they probably realize at a certain point, one of the bottlenecks that we're having is that these interview calls take time. So what if we only had one, right? But it's like just about everything works because so that particular guy, he's got a big audience on Twitter, but that's not the only thing at play here. The guy has been in the game for a while. He's probably been in the game for like 4 or 5 years. He's got a huge Twitter audience. He's got a pretty big LinkedIn audience. Plus, I think he's invested a ton into mentorship. The main founder of this company invested a ton into mentorship, and he's pretty much leapfrogged from one mentorship program to the next, just refining his like lead gen and like lead flow processes. So he's done everything under the sun from like cold email to paid ads. And like once you have, a few of those things working and you're just like stacking on top, right? It's like, yeah, we're doing cold email, paid ads, we're doing content marketing, we're doing LinkedIn cold DMs, and you're just like stacking on top of that. Plus, you got the funds and all this. It's like, yeah, some of our clients do churn after 3 months because we only do one interview call. And then some of them stay for a year because they just don't care and they just don't want to do it themselves. And maybe they don't even know the difference. So it just kind of shows that like anything with enough force can work, right? And this guy's killing it, right? And good for him. Um,
What
yeah.
do you think that they
Ask
charge?
me if I get to say $1 million revenue. Ask me if I'm doing 2 hour long interview calls with every client. It probably will change, or I'll outsource that part of the business, or it's completely just a fulfillment service with like another agency, or I hire
Right.
a guy like you to
Go interview.
host the interview calls, and then we do
Yeah.
a joint product where it's also short form video.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah. How much do you think these agencies are actually charging? Like, what is the elasticity of some of this ghostwriting business? Like, as far as like prices? Because it seems like agencies charge like a lot more than like a just a one person show, right?
Yeah. So when you're talking about just the one person show, across like the global market in this, I feel like ghostwriting starts at maybe like $1,000 a month. But of course, there probably are some people who are even selling ghostwriting for like $500 a month, right? For maybe a smaller tier, like 12 posts a month package on LinkedIn or something like this, right?
Hmm.
But then it ranges honestly all the way up to probably all the way up to $10,000 a month, and even beyond that too, because then there's like full like you know premium like done for you full stack LinkedIn, where it's like, yeah, we ghostwrite all your content. We also do video. Like we take your interview call, we turn it into short form video, long form video. We put an appointment setter in your DMs. We run LinkedIn ads for you, and it's we handle all the scheduling, all the engagement, everything, and it's $15,000 a month plus ad spend. Where if you're going for like the multi seven figure eight figure CEO founder, they would they there's people who would actually consider that, and there's people who would actually buy that for sure.
Yeah, that's like almost like a revenue engine. It almost becomes like their revenue department if they're doing all that kind of stuff, like the DMs and like, yeah, that seems like a lot of work too. Like, I don't know if like, would you do that yourself, or you? I would assume you'd outsource that, right? If it's like DMing people, because I don't even like doing it myself, so I don't know if I'd want to do it for other people.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that you could charge a lot of money for, like LinkedIn DMs. try outsourcing that at a low price, and you'll understand why someone could charge a lot of money for that, because it's like that's a skill set, man. That's not just something that you outsource to a VA. Like well, unless your VA is just an absolute rock
Beast.
star. Uh,
Rockstar.
um, yeah,
Ninja.
yeah. Actually, I saw a post about that on LinkedIn recently. How basically Rockstar is just code for like, we're looking for a social media rock star. It's just you're just going to be doing absolutely everything. Like
Yeah.
you're handling the entire marketing department for the company. Uh, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
not it's not the prestigious role that you think it is.
No, I totally get it. My phone's about to die, so I have to wrap this up in the next couple minutes. When are we going to go? Are you? I know you're traveling. Are you free next week? Do you want to do Friday the same time or Friday? Does that work for you? Or
Yeah, yeah. That
we'll
could be
talk.
absolutely
We'll
fun.
talk offline on the day or whatever. But last closing thoughts. Where are you heading? Are you heading to Canada? And then what's your schedule looking like? Out of curiosity, because it's the end of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. So heading back to Canada for Christmas and New Year's, that's going to be great. I almost can't believe I'm actually flying out like tomorrow morning.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then I think I'm just going to stay in Canada till like January 15th. And then I'm probably going to head either back to Paraguay, uh, and then possibly, and then probably Colombia at some point on that trip as well.
Nice,
Maybe
man.
towards the later part of the trip. Yeah.
Nice. I'm probably just gonna stick around LA and then do a little bit of snowboarding. I have some tickets to go to Mammoth, so gonna go riding for a bit. No jumping so much anymore, but just kind of cruising. But yeah, man, that was fun times as always. And then yeah, I'll catch you on the timeline.
Awesome, man. Yeah.
All
See
right,
you next Friday. See ya.
later.